lot of different positions here is that the experience is, I don't want to say it's insignificant, but it's really not a big deciding factor when we hire people. It really is throughout the process evaluating their problem-solving skills, because we come up with crazy stuff every day that we've never done before, and there's crazy things that blow up every day that we have to fix, and you need to be able to wrap your head around that very quickly and figure out a solution, almost instantly. And so, tons of people we've hired that I've never looked at the resume. I mean, it's not tech is different. They have to have some programming skills for a specific position, but it's more about just what we think they could bring to the team and how they can adapt.
May I just follow this up with a question?
Yeah.
Another question. When do you know expansion is the worst thing for your company? Because money and growth is not related to each other. Many people think so, and that's why they get in trouble.
Yeah. We've been, honestly, knowing now what I've learned over time, we made some really risky decisions that ended up paying off before. It's hard to say. Honestly, I don't have a great answer for that. It's just, as we have kind of evolved, we have been very aggressive with expansion, and we haven't always had the money there. Sometimes we've had to take on faith that we've had to, we're going to give this person an offer. They're going to start in 2 weeks. Our payroll cycle is a couple weeks after that. So we have a month to make that money to pay them. I think we can do this, which is, it usually ended up working out, but it's not something I would recommend for
So it's great to have your mother behind you.
Yes, it was nice having that safety net. But in all seriousness, though, that allowed me personally, but I think as a company, to be a little more aggressive, because I didn't know for sure if that was going to work out, but having that less of a fear of falling enabled us to fly a little bit higher, and that was kind of great to have at that point. So I do appreciate my mother very much. What other questions?
Where do you get ideas for games?
Ideas for games. That's a good question. It kind of started with our first game. This is we are our target market. We are people that play a lot of games, spend a lot of money in games. There's a Facebook game that doesn't exist anymore. It was a Madden social football game. I think I spent $6,000 over a few years on that game. So I am a huge whale in that game. So it's targeting people like me that want to play these games every day and want to spend and want to be the best. So we find things that we're interested in and make games that we want to play. I think that's been critical. Our first game, Dawn, being something that didn't really exist. There was things that were close to it, but we really would want to make the game that we would be, if nothing else, that we would be proud of. But hopefully, something that we would, if we had to, monetize it. So after we made the RPGs, we played a lot of Magic. I played Magic since 1994 and loved CCGs. And so just really that was the next push for us. What kind of game? Let's make something completely different. Let's make a CCG because we love playing. And the next game that we're making is something completely different. It's something that we love playing. I'm looking forward to pushing up the door sometime.
Thanks.
Now, what about the console market with the recent events of Microsoft and Sony being kind of the West Side Story of the 21st century, so on and so forth? But with the restrictions Microsoft is not placing, whereas Sony not so much,
That's a good question. I actually get asked that a lot. Is now that we've done this, are we going to consoles? And the answer is always no, because this web and mobile it's still the Wild West. I mean, we can just do whatever we want, and that's pretty awesome. We can carve out this little niche for ourselves. As long as we can defend it and make it profitable, then we're going to be okay. The cost for us to make a new game, this new game is a bit more because we're taking our sweet time with it. But every game up to this, Dawn cost us $10,000 to make. It's going to cost a lot to make, a console game. So it's always been, there's less risk for us and higher reward, and having no venture backing, no funding at all, having we can't really make a big mistake, we can't afford to make a big mistake. We've played conservative, I guess, in those regards, but it's also it's what we know and what we've done before. So it's just not a playground that we're interested in playing. And that the space has changed so much over the years. Unless it's a sequel to a big franchise, it's going to be hard to do a lot. There are definitely some indie standouts, but we're focusing on what we have experience in and what we've done best. So, Joe, you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
So, where do you stand with education when it comes to game development? Like, do you think people, what areas should they learn? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a loaded question, isn't it? I feel education is important. So one of the things that I kind of glossed over during the story of the history was, so I, right out of high school, went to school for a few months, dropped out, started working, got married, had kids, never really even had any college credits up until about 5 years ago. Wasn't super excited with my life. I was doing insurance financial planning, liked it, I felt good about it, but it was, my key office hours were 6 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and weekends, and I never saw my kids. And so I wanted to do something different with my life. So with the support of my mother, I decided to quit my job and go back to school. So I actually enrolled in Sierra College, and my wife went back to work and just kind of, cut down our expenses and just trying to find a way to make it work. But I actually went back to get a degree in mathematics. So I was going to be a high school math teacher. I love algebra. I wanted to do that with my life, and something I would feel fulfilled with, and I could have summers off with the kids, those kinds of things. And I was the end of my second year when we were about a year in when we started the company. It was the end of my second year when we started making Dawn, and I actually had to make a very difficult choice at that point between education and following my dream. I had high school and previous college, I had kind of just screwed around a lot. When I went back to school at 33 at that point, I don't know, 32, whatever, it's something I took more seriously. So I actually got good grades, I got a full academic scholarship to UC Davis, and I had turned it down to launch Dawn of the Dragons. And my wife was very supportive, as supportive as she possibly could be, and said, this is your one shot to follow your dream. If you mess this up, then you need to go back to school and you need to get a real job. And I said, deal. But, so I have trouble saying, education is important, that's the most important thing, because I didn't obviously follow that path. But it is extremely important, and I'm definitely going to encourage my kids to go to school. But it's not just to try to get degree in X or in Y. It's to learn those life skills, to learn those problem-solving skills, to because those are really the key things that I feel are important in this industry. You're going to be hard-pressed to talk David into giving you a job if you don't know any programming languages. So those are important from school too. But we do encourage. There's some of the team members here that were not finished with school. And we do encourage them to finish their degree because it is valuable. Even though I haven't done this, it's not bad. Too much on my plate. What other questions?
You kind of mentioned, hey, how's it going?
Good.
You kind of mentioned early on that you kind of had some problems finding local artists. Do you still find that it's still hard to bring in artists to this area, or find artists, or has it gotten better over the years?
That's a great question. That's actually one of the things that makes us different too. We have no artists in our office here. So we still have our entire art team remote. So when we found the first artist, he lived in LA, and that was just kind of, it didn't matter where he lived. And as we continue to grow, we actually found that we could still manage that team remotely really well. So that was one of the conscious choices that we made was rather have a really good artist at an affordable rate and not in the office. So we have artists in, arguably one of our best artists is really affordable. He lives in the Philippines. We have an artist in South Korea. We have 2 artists, I think, in France now. We have they're all over the world. We have 9 full-time artists on our team, and none of them are here. So yes, it's very difficult to find artists in this area, but it's also more affordable, and that's the way our team has always worked, and it actually has worked really well for them. So we have a really good Jeff, our first artist, is now our art director. We actually have our kind of creative lead that really helps with that a lot. So it was because we had a really good team that could help build that out. And that works better for us right now. I honestly think that can scale. One of the few things from the old 5PG that will be able to scale pretty well. It'll change over time, but yeah, we've been able to do that. And it's just, again, we find really good artists for affordable rates that way, and they can kind of still live their life, which is nice. Good question.
You were talking about another important aspect of your company is the cultural development.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys started with the original people working with you, and I realized, people have different personality, and especially when you've been working with them really long time through every weekend, every day, not including taking showers. How do you all really control the culture? Because the culture is a very important aspect of a company. Because if you get it wrong, you're gonna continue that path for a long time.
It's a living, breathing organism, and it's something that you have to nurture, and it's something you have to spend time on, and you can't just hope it's going to work out. So you can only influence it so much. Like we can make game nights mandatory, but that would defeat the purpose. It really goes back to that very first step of the hiring process. Honestly, sometimes in the past, I think we put too much emphasis on that and hired people that were just grossly underqualified because they were a good fit culturally. Sometimes those worked out, sometimes they didn't. Those are the things that we've gotten better. And that's one of the nice things at the point that we're at now. Like before, we would put out a job posting and we'd get like 6 people that would apply. And so we kind of, had to do the best we could. And sometimes we got really great applicants for that. We're at the point now that we put out a job posting and we get 100. And so we can kind of weed that down and find the person that hits on all of the things at once. But it wasn't always like that. I mean, the first 40 or 50 people we hired, it was like we had our pick of 3 people for this position. But we found people, again, it was just, it was finding people that were just really passionate about being in games. That I don't want to say they didn't care about anything else, but that was the most important thing. They wanted to be in this industry. Of the 55 people, I think at least 50 of them, this is their first job in gaming.
Wow.
I mean, we have very, very, very few people that have ever worked in this industry before. And that was a big kind of culture thing too. This is people, again, just would do anything to be in gaming. And that was us. That was who we are.
So the learning aspect, quick learning, is part of your culture.
So important. I mean, for those reasons. Yeah, absolutely.
So in regards to that, what's your new hire process? I mean, you get a guy in here, what do you do with him right off the bat?
So we're still working on that. It's not great. But that's part of, we need those people that are agile. I mean,
It's learning by doing.
Yeah,
Okay,
You know
so,
what I mean?
I mean,
So-
do you slap
so-
him in front of his own computer? Do you sit him down next to somebody else who knows what they're doing?
There's a training process of sorts, but the reality is that he or she is going to learn by figuring stuff out. We won't give them real world problems that's going to break the game, etc.
Yeah.
But we'll say, hey, here's the game, here's all the code. I want you to change this guy's hat or something. You know what I mean? I want to make you holding him a left-handed weapon in his right hand, and just have them dive in and figure it out. And the questions they ask, by figuring that out, that's what allows them to learn. That's what allows them to train themselves, really.
every position is different. Like most of the design positions, we actually fill from within our player base. So, like the last couple project managers that run design for our games, they were former players. We've hired probably about 10 people from past councils. So that is, we're looking for that kind of experience. So it's just, it's different. So we do kind of expect them to hit the ground running. I mean, those are the skills that if you can't, then it probably wouldn't have worked out long term anyways. Unfortunately, we're just not in a position that we can just hold people's hands too long. So it sounds bad to kind of say it's sink or swim, but it kind of is. I mean, it's the reality of our situation.
Supported.
Yes, it is, and we do really try to support people as much as we can, but it's not perfect. But it works.
At some point, obviously, the word's going to get out. Obviously, back to the news that you're moving. So once it extends beyond 916, and you start getting offers as far as for company expansion or to become incorporated or something, what's your policy on how you're looking at going forward? Is that ever going to be an option, or when do you think that is
You like being acquired? Things like
becoming
that?
acquired?
We've had those conversations for years. I mean, we've been approached multiple times.